Hi, and welcome back to Psychology Bites, the podcast where we teach you all about things in psychology and everything that you need to know. So I'm your host, Heather, and I'm here with my mother-in-law, Dr. Cindy Eddins, who is a licensed counselor. Today we're going to talk about parenting styles, which we talked a little bit about last week. There are 4 total parenting styles, and those are permissive, authoritarian, authoritative, and neglectful. So let's start out with neglectful. What can you tell us about parents who are neglectful to their kids? Like what kinds of traits do they have?
The parents or the kids?
The parents.
The parents are busy, caught up in their own life. When you see a neglectful parenting type, you're going to look at a parent who is busy living their own life, busy living their own career, and doesn't take an active part in their kid's life, doesn't care about their school, doesn't care. Because they're just too busy with their own life. I mean, they might think they care, they might want to care, but they don't take much time to spend with their children or see what's going on in their lives or talk to them or listen to them.
Okay. And what kind of kids do we see come out of this form of parenting? What kind of traits are the kids going to have?
It does vary, admittedly, but most kids coming from that are used to being able to just have to fend for themselves, do their own thing. Kids learn to be self-reliant, but the attachment is very bad. And so they usually will end up in bad relationships. They could be like, there's different attachment styles, but they could, be very confused on how to be in a relationship, how to be in a loving relationship, because their parents didn't give them a loving relationship. They didn't show that they cared.
Mm-hmm. So I guess that kind of talks about how it would affect them later on in adulthood also.
Yeah, because, we do what our parents did unless we learn better. So when they do what their parents did, they're just going to do the same thing, get caught up in their own lives and think that's okay.
Right. All right, so next we're going to move on to the permissive style. So what can you tell us about this style and the kind of parents that these are?
So the permissive style, a lot of times you're going to find this in like really wealthy families. You're going to see like helicopter moms kind of stuff. But they do absolutely everything for their kid. Their kid does nothing. If their kid does something wrong, they don't face any repercussions for it, any consequences. So they get used to being able to get away with everything. We all know those people. We all know those kids that everybody has a friend that I can get away with anything I want. I can do whatever I want, and just does whatever they want. And their parents bail them out time after time after time after time.
Mm-hmm. And so the next question is, I guess, kind of similar. Like, what kind of kids come out of that style of parenting, and what traits do they have? How does it affect them later in life?
I mean, those are the kinds of kids that think that they can break the law and they're above the law because, they can just do whatever they want. And mommy and daddy got lots of money. They'll just bail them out. Who cares? It doesn't matter. I can do whatever I want, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. And nobody likes them. Like I said, like we all know those kinds of people because we all don't like those people. Nobody likes the spoiled brat that gets away with murder. But there's lots of them out there. And yes, it's because of parenting style.
Yeah. I feel like I've seen a lot of this parenting style come out of my generation. Like there's a lot of kids in my generation who, like, their parents were not strict. And even if they're not criminals, they don't know how to do anything. Like, they move off to college and they don't even know how to, like, fry an egg because they've never had to do anything on their own. They have, like, failing grades in college and they get kicked out of college because their parents helped them do everything. They don't even know how to have a school schedule on their own.
Yeah, and actually that brings up a really, really good point. Generation X is constantly complaining on TikTok. And hey, I'm with you. We had it hard. Like people from that generation and right before I feel like we all grew up being locked out of our houses, all summer long and after school, and we drank out of a garden hose. Yes, all that is true. We didn't go to school barefoot uphill. That was like the boomers, I think. But like we had to fend for ourselves in major ways. Our parents, for the first time, both parents went to work. For the first time, there was latchkey kids, and Generation X didn't like it. We didn't like the way we were raised. We really didn't like it, to the point that we said, we're not doing that to our kids. And so we went to the opposite extreme and spoiled them rotten. And now we have this failure to launch. It's not just a movie, it's a whole thing. I mean, kids really are failing to launch. You'd be amazed at how many clients I have that are either living in their parents' house at 30, 40 years old, or have their children living in their house at 30, 40 years old, or 20s. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And they don't really even care to get a high school diploma or to get a college degree. They just want to play video games in their parents' basement.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to authoritarian. What can you tell us about this style and the kind of parents that they are?
So those parents are long-timey. U.S. is riddled with authoritarian parents. Do as I say, not as I do. When I say jump, you say how high. Children should be seen but not heard. Grow up and act your age. Oh, you're 5. Grow up and act your age. Don't question me. I said so, you have to do it. Don't ask questions. That's what the authoritarian parent sounds like. I don't like them because they are mean. They do not say the words "I love you." They don't show love in any way, shape, or form. Yes, they show a lot of discipline, but like discipline in a very disrespectful manner. And yes, we have to respect our children too. Our children have to respect us, but we have to respect them. It's a mutual relationship there.
Yeah. So what kind of kids come out of this? How do they act?
Yeah, they act like they do, and they're mean. And honestly, it's kind of rewarded in society, which is why it's so long-timey and why so many people do it, because then they grow up and they're like, kick everybody to the curb, and they don't care who they treat wrongly, so they move up that corporate ladder. And so then, dad moved up the corporate ladder by being rude and ignorant to everybody, and then mom did, and then junior did, and junior did, and it's like this thing now, and they're all mean to each other. Is that really the way we want to live in life? To be mean to each other? And to ask a 5-year-old to act like a 20-year-old?
I feel like a lot of people from your generation come from that style of parenting.
They do, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think a lot of people have like trauma from that too.
Yeah, they do.
All right. The last style of parenting is probably the best one, the one you want to aim for, and that's the authoritative. So can you explain what that is and how it's different from authoritarian? Because I know that they sound similar.
So the authoritative one is the one that people, counselors, psychologists all strive to have everybody do. We want everybody to do the authoritative parenting style because they're the ones that say, look, little Johnny, you have to behave and you have to follow the rules or you will have consequences, but I love you and this is why I need you to follow the rules. If you run out in front of the cars, you'll get smashed and you'll be all smushed and you won't be here anymore. I don't want that to happen to you because I love you. And so we don't run out in the road, okay? And honestly, talking to our kids, helping them to understand why they can't do certain things or understand why they need to do certain things, it helps them to better conform to the rules and become a better citizen. Also, I neglected to mention this in the other ones, but there's emotional regulation here. when we teach our kids why they can and can't do stuff, why society expects this, that, and the other thing, but doesn't want you to do this, that, and the other thing, they can emotionally regulate. They learn how to calm down. They learn how to, oh, okay, this is why I was getting upset there, but my feelings were hurt and I was getting a little defensive there. But now I understand because you explained it to me. So now I can calm down. But like with authoritarian, there is no emotional regulation. I mean, none, zero,
They say
zilch.
because I said so.
Yeah, well,
it's always, well, you can't go out on the road because I said so.
Yeah. And if dad and mom can't emotionally regulate, what happens to the kids? They can't emotionally regulate either. So it's just rawr all the time, rah, rah, rah. And rah, rah, rah doesn't do anything but make people emotionally irregulated. And if we don't know what emotional regulation is, it's where we learn to temper our emotions. We learn to not jump off at the gun because we're mad and upset. We learn that because we're mad and upset, we're feeling defensive, that means, and that we have this hurt emotion behind the scenes going on. And if we can get to that hurt emotion, we don't go rah to everybody. We understand we're hurt and this is why we're hurting. But if we just get defensive, then the other person gets defensive and everybody's defensive, and then it's bad.
Yeah.
There's a lot of yelling and screaming.
Yeah.
And then everybody's going back to apologize later, if they apologize. A lot of authoritarians, parents won't ever apologize. That's another difference between parenting styles. The authoritative parents always apologize when they do something wrong. And yes, we do apologize to our children when we do something wrong. We're all human. Everybody's human. Everybody's subject to error. And I mean, no matter what your beliefs are, it doesn't matter. We all make mistakes. And that's just a fact of human life, human error. We get it. So why do we think we have to be perfect to our kids? Because they thought we were the greatest thing in the world when they were 2, 3, and 4. Well, guess what? Like we all grow up and get disillusioned. We just have to like temper that, learn.
Yeah. And what kind of kids come out of the authoritative style, and how does it affect them in life?
Those are the well-developed kids. They're successful. They usually do well. They can emotionally regulate. They raise good kids. They're happy. They go on vacations. They have a good life, and that's the dream. That is the American dream.
Yeah. So we know that this authoritative style is kind of considered to be the right one. They produce the best kids. Many people have come out of this style of parenting being successful adults and leading successful lives. So I'm sure that a question that would be asked is, how can someone change parenting styles? Like maybe they start out permissive or authoritarian and they want to be authoritative. How can they manage that?
I actually I've had lots of parents throughout the years that I worked with. I have several parents now I work with. I was going to say lots, but probably just several. But, I do. I have like parents that want to be better parents, that understand that I'm hitting my kid and screaming at my kid and they're not fixing their behavior. Oh, well, gee, I wonder why. Because when we do like strong discipline like that, yes, it does it right in the moment. Discipline is good for the moment, but it's not good for long term, because they will find a way to get around the discipline. They don't learn not to do it. They learn how to get away with doing it. With authoritative, they know why not to do it. And so they just curb their behavior. Does it take longer? Absolutely, because we're teaching something. Teaching a skill always takes longer. But where was I? What was the question? I got off track.
How they can change parenting styles. Basically, go to counseling.
Yeah, like I help them because like we talk about it. The parents might say, like, okay, we did this and we did that and this is what they did. And I'd be like, okay, well, try doing this and try doing that, and then talking to them and, set this rule. It's like setting boundaries. Generation loves boundaries, so set boundaries with your kids, like if you come in late, you get a consequence. It's not about being mad and upset. It's just about giving a consequence. This is the rule. This is the consequence if you don't obey the rule. And when we set the rule, we explain why we're setting the rule, what the consequence will be, how long. Like if you're going to take somebody's phone or iPad or whatever you're going to take to punish a kid, tell them that you're going to do it and tell them for how long. Our court system doesn't put you in jail and say, we'll decide later how long you're going to stay here when we get done being mad at you. I mean, seriously, you don't know how many parents do that. Like, but it doesn't teach the kid anything except to climb out the window and figure it out. Like,
yeah.
And there is one thing I'd like to say too. Like I always get myself in trouble on Facebook because of this one thing that goes around, and it goes around every few years. Somebody pushes it out, but it always amazes me the people that I see it on their Facebook pages. So the thing is, it's a little saying thing, and I'm going to totally misquote it. But it basically says, you are responsible for yourself and your actions, and stop blaming your parents for your troubles. Everything you do, you're responsible for. You're an adult, you're 18, whatever, period. And they literally spell the word period. Like there's no other explanation whatsoever. It's just all you. But the people that post these things take their kids to church, have their kids in sports, belong to the PTO, are active, involved in their kids' life and want to know how about their friendships, and are good, authoritative parents. And then they sit there and post something like that. And I'm like, why are you bothering? If when they turn 18, magically it's all about them and their decisions and you had nothing to do with it, then why are you setting them up for success? Why do you care about setting them up? Why take them to ball fields? We know statistically that if a kid is involved in church, or if a kid is involved in sports, or if a kid is involved in any after school activities, they are like a lot less likely. I don't remember. It's probably a different statistic by now, but they're a lot less likely to ever get in trouble, ever go to jail, ever do any of those things. And so parents work really hard to do this stuff with their kids. Mm-hmm. Why? If when they're 18, they just magically, it's all about them. No, our parents spit out of our mouth. Unless we do better, we act like our parents. We grow up, we adopt those characteristics. If it's yelling and screaming and fighting all the time, it's going to be yelling and screaming and fighting all the time that they grow up doing. Unless they go to counseling. Yeah. Got to put my bid in for counseling there.
I was going to say, go to counseling, learn about what your parents' styles were and how you resemble them, and then learn how to change it. Okay. What was the next one? Oh, is it possible for someone to change parenting styles and get worse? Like maybe they start out doing really good, trying to be authoritative, and then all of a sudden they start being authoritarian or neglectful. What can cause that?
Alcoholism. It's what comes to mind right away. You know, like it happens. Like, so something happens. Maybe dad is a construction worker and he falls and hurts his back and can't work anymore. Do you know what it does to a male ego still in this day and age if he can't work and support his family? I mean, that's a blow to the ego. And so they self-medicate. And when they self-medicate, like especially alcohol, it makes people rar. And so then they feel bad. They have that bad feeling. They're hurt. They feel like crap because they're not doing what they need to do because they got hurt. And so they feel all kinds of sad emotions going on there. So they rar at their family. All of a sudden they become authoritarian. Just go in your room. I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear you. For no apparent reason or whatever. Stresses in lives. Stress makes us do bad things. Stress makes our parents come out of our mouth. And in the worst ways. And so if we don't want that to happen, we have to learn to manage our stress, which people are really not that great at.
Yeah.
This country thrives on stress. And It's not good. Mindfulness, again, mindfulness, people, mindfulness.
Yeah. So like traumatic events, alcohol, drugs, things of that nature.
They will definitely change a person. I don't think somebody's going to go from being authoritative to authoritarian unless there's going to be something drastic to happen that they didn't handle well. It's going to have to increase their stress. Can they go from authoritarian to authoritative? Yes, but that takes learning and actually practicing and trying. Permissive to neglectful, I feel like there's a thin line there. Maybe, they stop doting on their kid and like just start doting on something else, whatever, give their attention to something else. But or some other kid dies, worst case scenario, some other kid dies and the parents like, oh my God, that could have been my kid. And so then all of a sudden they become a permissive parent,
or maybe one of their other children dies, and so
they latch on to that,
to the remaining living child.
And honestly, a lot of times I've seen where that can break a family up because the parent doesn't go to the other child so much as they just go inside themselves. And I think that's the worst thing anybody would go through is losing a child. I just don't want to imagine it. I think that's the worst thing any of us could go through.
Yeah. Okay, so summarizing, I think we should aim to be authoritative parents. It can definitely be helpful to get counseling, learn about your childhood and how to make changes in the future with your own kids. And it can also help to take a child development class. You can learn more about parenting styles and each child's stage of development and what they go through mentally and emotionally.
And on that note, I always tell people to get a child development book, a psychology textbook. Just get it. Like you can get a used one for $5 or $10. It doesn't matter. Get a used one. But get like early childhood development when you're pregnant. And so the stages they're going to go through and you can be aware and you can be informed. Knowledge is power, people. Knowledge is power.
Yeah. And so, you want to learn how to set healthy boundaries with your children. You want to set high expectations for them and normal consequences and explain those things to them. Be open and honest with them, just like you would to another adult, because that's basically what kids are. They're tiny adults. They're learning how to be adults.
The biggest thing kids complain about when they come in for counseling is their parents don't listen to them, or their parents don't take them seriously, or their parents dismiss them because they're a kid.
Yeah.
That's their biggest complaint. Kids just want to be heard. Listen to them. Like, you just want to be heard. Why wouldn't they just want to be heard too?
Yeah.
We all just want to be heard.
And like problem solve with them, work with them.
Yeah. So you'll see a lot of things like with authoritative, they say debate with your kids. But you got to understand, fighting and debating are two totally different things. When we say debate with your kids, that means I'm going to set your bedtime at 9 a.m. or 8 p.m., 9 a.m. I'm going to set your bedtime at 8 p.m. And then you're going to come back as my child and say, but Mom, that's so early. I really like to watch my favorite show that comes on at 8 and it ends at 8:30. Can I please go to bed at 8:30 instead if I get everything ready and like take my bath beforehand and be all ready? All right, so do you think you could get everything ready, take your bath, be in your pajamas, and you can watch the show from 8 to 8:30, but then it's straight to bed? Okay, that's cool. That's a debate. We each have a different perspective, a different agenda, but we're willing to talk about it and compromise. We're willing to look at each other's sides. Fight is, all right, your bedtime's at 8 o'clock. No, I'm not going to bed at 8. I want to go to bed at 8:30. I want to watch my show. You heard what I said. You got to get to bed get to bed by 8. No, please, Mom, I want to watch my show. I want to watch. No, I said you got to get to bed at 8. Bedtime's at 8. Why are you always arguing with me? Why do you push back from me all the time? Why all this pushback?
Why do you have an attitude?
Why do we all have to yell? Like, can't we just talk about this like two people instead of yelling at each other? And that's arguing. There's a difference. It may be subtle, but there's a difference, a big difference in the way we present our arguments.
Yeah, I agree.
Toastmasters is a thing. Toastmasters is a debate team club thing that is really good for young people to get involved in and learn how to debate correctly and properly. That actually helps. I highly recommend it. I was in Toastmasters. I loved it.
Okay. I think that pretty much wraps up our episode for today. If there's anything that we didn't cover that you want to hear about, if you have any questions, reach out to us. You can comment under the video. You can visit our website that's posted on our page and shoot us an email. As a reminder, Cindy is a full-time licensed counselor in Georgia, and she is accepting new patients online only. If you're interested, you can visit our website for more contact information. Again, that's on our page. But thanks for joining us for episode 6 of Psychology Bites. And join us next week when we're going to talk about PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder.
That's a good one.
Have a great week, everybody.